Hey everybody, it's Kneecap here, and in this video, I'm going to be talking about classic WoW once again. And specifically, we're going to be talking about the talent tree, and I will be just kind of going through the old talent trees here and talking about it a little bit. So I recently did a video of making WoW fun or more fun, and in that video, I was discussing expanding out the talent trees, but that the old talent trees weren't necessarily perfect, and but the new talent trees aren't necessarily perfect either, as most people would say. So what we liked about the old talent trees was you had 51 points, you got to place them in different areas. It made it seem like you had more choice than what you really did. And I'll kind of be highlighting some of that, but I'm also going to highlight some of the good things as well. And I'm going to start off actually with Hunter, which is one that you can play around with a little bit. So each thing, so Beast Mastery is the one where besides the beginning of Beastmaster, which is improved aspect of the Hawk, you're almost always going to want to have that. However, you don't, so that's like a baseline damage. Almost everything else in Beastmaster is only for your pets or for like defensive type things. So it's not very helpful as far as like damage goes, right? You could be full Beast Mastery spec. You could do that and then add a few points in another spec. Don't get me wrong, but Beast Mastery isn't a super hybrid one. However, you can like mix up. There's an interesting spec you can mix up between survival and marksmanship. It's not necessarily amazing, but you can kind of get some of the really good critical strike and ranged weapon bonus. You can get aim shot, the agility bonus, and survival, and you can kind of mix these up without taking the final Riven Sting in survival, and then that allows you to grab aim shot in marksmanship, grab mortal shots, grab lethal shots, improved hunter's mark. But you do miss out on the aspect of the hawk in this case. You don't have the true shot aura. I believe the best spec was just marksmanship. I'm not a master on all the classes in vanilla, but I believe like the most damage was just pure marksmanship. But at least allows you with some options that you can do here. You could also build a super defensive spec with hunters by going like Beast Mastery survival. You could just go like almost full survival for good survivability as well. But yeah, so this is an example of one that you can kind of mix up a little bit, and it gives you choices. And depending what you're doing, you change your spec, and you can change it quite radically, not just a talent point here or there. But let's get into Druid, because Druid is one that you might expect, given all of the different abilities, that you'd be able to change up quite a bit. Now, let's keep in mind with the current system, the talents do change vastly when you switch spec, especially when you are a class that can like tank, heal, or DPS. Like your talents change in a very big way when you change spec. So it looks like you just have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 or 6 choices, whatever. But you might actually have like 18, which is, and they're almost all ability choices. Whereas in the old style here, a lot of it's like static choices. So like increases agility, increases strength, increases hit chance, things like that. So as druids go, you have to remember in the old days, feral combat was just one thing. So cat and bear was just one thing. And so because of that, you still have the same amount of talent things, basically. So you're really crammed full. So there's not a lot of helpful things for resto or balance in feral. So if you're, and a lot of people didn't even play feral. So if you're feral, you're pretty much just feral. You're gonna grab the necessary things in like another thing, like you'd grab Fury and Restoration, for example. If you're PvPing, you're always gonna take like Nature's Grasp type things. So with PvP, you would go probably like Resto with Balance. You could go Balance with Resto a little bit, and that would be like your kind of hybridness. But other than that, it's really not super helpful because balance, again, it's mostly defensive. When you look at it, besides natural shapeshifter reduces mana cost of shapeshifting. Besides that, especially in the early on in balance, there's almost nothing that's going to help you that's not either defensive or just pure damage. So there's not a lot of hybridness in druids, which is kind of like an oxymoron. Another one we'll talk about that real quick is I'm not going to go through every single spec because that would take too long. But I did kind of go through some of these and have an idea of what to talk about. So Arcane, we're going to go to mages. This is one, again, that's not hybrid at all. And maybe there's a reason for that. Maybe they were afraid to make it too powerful. But Arcane is one where you're basically not helped at all by picking anything out of Arcane. You could do something like you would do like the Frost Warding maybe, or an Elemental Precision, just for your like Frost Nova and Fire Blast, which you would still have and use as Arcane occasionally. But other than that, you would just go pure arcane. Almost the same thing for fire. You have, I mean, you would just pick again the elemental precision and frost. That's always going to be pretty much taken. In arcane, you don't have to take it, but you would pretty much always take that. And it's just a really interesting dynamic that a class that nowadays is extremely hybridy. Like like you could like there's talents that would work, frost talents. Not that you can do it, and maybe that's the issue. Maybe they need to just give you the whole pool of talents to choose from, right? Maybe that's the actual solution. That there's talents that could be hybridy, whereas back in the vanilla classic, there actually isn't. Paladin's another one that can be interesting. You can combine Retribution with Protection. You can combine Holy with Retribution. You can make some interesting, like a Shock It In, for example. You can do some interesting things with Paladin, especially when I was playing around with it. I felt like you could do a lot with Holy Paladin. You could go like a super defensive Holy Paladin, like almost a tank Holy Paladin. You could go like a damage Holy Paladin, or you could go a pure healing Holy Paladin. Other than that, like if you're Prot, you're gonna have to take the parry that's in red. Like if you're actually tanking as Prot, so you're gonna be doing like the same thing almost every time because of that. So that's a little bit cookie cutter. But with Holy, you do have a lot of options depending on how you're playing and what style you're playing. Probably the last one I'm going to talk about, just so the video isn't too awful long, is Shaman. So Shaman were, in my opinion, the strongest thing in Vanilla or Classic. Only Horde could be Shaman, which if you haven't experienced that, you'll find that out. Hopefully, if you're a Shaman player, that you don't mind playing Horde. But Shaman are one where you can mix up quite a bit between Enhancement and Elemental, because you still have. But back in Vanilla, you didn't only have, like, you didn't learn. Now, when you switch to Frost, you unlearn Fireball and learn Frostbolt. Well, you still have Frostbolt when you're Fire. Like, you don't unlearn. I'm pretty sure. I'm like 99% sure on that. I guess I could be wrong, but there are, So basically, you're still gonna have most of the ability. Let's just say most. You're still gonna have most of the abilities that you would normally have. Like for example, you were at Arcane and you would have Presence of Mind, and you could Pyroblast still. You still have Pyroblast. But so the same thing goes, and you can kind of hybrid with Enhancement Elemental, because Elemental is boosting up your totem damage, it boosted up your shock damage, whereas Enhancement is boosting up your weapon damage and your like your melee spells, and you can kind of combine those two to make a really powerful spec together. And I'm not sure if it works the same way as Elemental to enhance it, but I did Enhancement to Elemental, and I didn't play Shaman in Vanilla because I was Alliance player. But it was very interesting, and you get to see why they were so strong, because out of all the classes, I feel like this had the most hybrid ability. Not only were they just strong in general, but when you could have like all the best talents in Enhancement, and then kind of add in like a really good talent, not all the best ones, but really good talents in Elemental as well. That shows why Shaman were so strong. And honestly, and not to repeat myself from my last video, but as far as making the talent trees better, you would want to do something more like this, where you're hybriding. You're basically making a hybrid of two classes, or two specs or three specs, and you're going to do this by giving abilities and ability power, not by increases hit percentage, increases, resistance, and those are things we don't have to worry about in the game anymore. So it'd be easy to get around that. But yeah, I think that would be a great thing. Like I was saying, maybe an easy way to do it now would be you choose, instead of choosing a spec anymore, you basically have all your talents available. I guess you'd still have to choose a spec the way they have the game set up. So let's say you're a mage. Let's go back to mage real quick. Let's say you chose fire, so you would have to choose like at least 4 fire talents or something like that. Like you have to get to the bottom of however many fire talents there are. So you have to choose a certain amount of fire to fill in, but then after that you get to choose whatever arcane talents and whatever frost talents you want. And you wouldn't be able to get to like the final one that you can only get if you are in that spec. So like the most powerful one, you wouldn't be able to just pick the 3 most powerful ones, because that's what everyone would do. So you'd have like a little bit of variety depending on what you're doing, depending on what exact boss, trash, progression, parsing, whatever you were doing, Mythic Plus, and you'd have all these different options potentially, in a system like that. So the classic talent calculator is not perfect by any means. There's certain classes where it's better for than others. For some classes like Arcane Mage, you're pretty much just stacking Arcane. But yeah, I'm definitely excited to do this, and I have pretty much decided to do a classic video every week if possible, just because it is getting me excited. I do like the old calculators better, so whatever they did, whatever Blizzard did, I would hope it'd be more set up this way, even if there was less clicking involved, so less than 51 points, but to have just a bunch of choices of abilities, because that's what really makes it more fun. So yeah, a little bit longer than I would have liked, but it's a big issue. So please subscribe to the channel if if you've ever been interested in any of the videos, if I've ever helped you out at all, or if you just want to help me out. I appreciate that a lot, and everybody have a good one.